Hello and welcome to the Aussie Football Passport, your one-stop pod for updates on your favourite Aussie men and women who are playing their club careers abroad. I'm your host Alex, and we've got another bumper episode for you this week. We've got an update on how our Junior Matildas went in Asian Cup qualification, a brief analysis on the Socceroos game against the USA, a squad update for the Matildas, upcoming games against England and Wales, as well as an announcement on who they are playing in the November and December international window, and of course, our usual wrap of all the club action of our Aussies abroad. Let's get into it with the headlines. All right. And of course, we talked about a couple of coaches last week, and we will continue to talk about them this week. And it is unfortunate news for Ange Postecoglou, who has been sacked from Nottingham Forest after just 5 English Premier League games and 8 games in total in charge of the club. Despite the admiration for Ange from Forest owner Evangelos Marinakis, he was not given the time he needs to employ his tactics with that squad, especially considering the number of games played in that 39-day period that Ange was in charge for, which, of course, was the shortest in, length by days for an English Premier League permanent manager to be in charge of a club. So not particularly great. Not really good at all for Ange, but look, we hope he bounces back, and I think it might be time for him to head to the European continent for a coaching gig. Now, speaking of Australian managers, Kevin Muscat, he was in advanced talks to take over at Rangers. However, due to Muscat wanting to see out the title race at Shanghai Port in China, which would mean he would not be available until late November or early December, the timelines did not match, and therefore the talks have broken down between the clubs. Of course, Shanghai Port not far off winning the title, so all the best to Kevin, but very interesting that it didn't work out there for him. All right, now to national team news, and let's kick off with our Junior Matildas, who opened their AFC Under-17 Women's Asian Cup 2026 qualifying campaign, what a mouthful, with a commanding 22-0 win over the Northern Mariana Islands in Singapore. Isabella Racco scored 4, while Sienna Calvanese got a hat-trick, and Maeve Nichols and Tyra Biagante both bagged braces. The girls then backed it up with only half the number of goals, can you believe it, of their previous match, scoring 11 against Singapore in an 11-0 victory there. Theodora Michalad, who we have mentioned previously on this podcast, she did win Women's Player of the Week a few episodes ago, I do believe. She was a star in this game, scoring 4 goals. Isabella Racco, yes, her again. She followed up with her 4-goal effort from the previous game with a hat-trick this time around in another masterclass in finishing. The result means the Junior Matildas finished top of Group E, surprise, surprise, with 2 wins from 2 matches and scoring 33 goals without conceding. You'd probably know if you're good at maths there. Their qualification secures a place among Asia's best 8 teams in the Under-17 Women's Asian Cup to be held in China next April. That tournament, of course, is an official pathway to the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup of 2026, and it offers a major opportunity for the next generation of Australian talent to test themselves on the international stage and potentially be picked up by clubs overseas as well. So well done to our Junior Matildas. Now to that Matildas squad update. Jada Wyman has been ruled out for the upcoming games against Wales and England due to injury. She's been replaced in the squad by Morgan Aquino, who plays for DC Power FC in the USL in the USA. Aquino was called up for the first time to the Matildas in November 2024, but has yet to make her senior debut. So let's see if that changes in this upcoming international window. The first game is, of course, against Wales on Sunday, the 26th of October at 12 a.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, and is then followed by the game against England on Wednesday, the 29th of October at 6 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Now, in more Matildas news, Football Australia has announced that the ladies will be playing the Football Ferns or New Zealand in a 2-game series in the November-December international window. The first game is to be played at the newly named Polytech Stadium in Gosford, with details for the second match to be released in due course. And of course, we will update you in the next episode if it is announced in time before that one. Now to some Socceroos analysis. So the streak is over for Popper. He's lost his first game in 12 games in charge of the Socceroos. They went down 2-1 to the USA in what is being called a very physical encounter. I think Fagaroos was dropped a number of times in the US media and by a couple of the players themselves. But yeah, look, nothing like a bit of a physical encounter with the Yanks. Again, it was more of the same counter-attacking style of football from the Socceroos, and I think that that's what we are definitely going to see. That's the identity that Popper is going for. Jordan Boss showed his individual quality, scoring the only goal for the Australians, and it was the first goal in the match, with Haji Wright scoring the 2 for USA, which were both probably fairly sloppy, I would say. One conceded off a quick free kick that Popper will no doubt be pretty upset about, considering he was a former defender himself in his playing days. So yeah, not particularly great from our defenders, which is a bit of an issue. But on the flip side, there was some wastefulness in front of goal, of course. Connor Metcalf missing one of those great opportunities. Not that we want to target one particular player, because there were a couple involved in that. But in some positives, I would say that Jordan Boss and Nestori Irankunda's link up down that left-hand side for the Socceroos looks very, very promising and could be a major attacking threat in the upcoming November window and hopefully onto the World Cup next year. There are some decisions, I believe, to be made in that midfield for Popper. There were some sloppy turnovers, and we will get to some positive news in that midfield sort of selection area for Popper later in the podcast. As mentioned, physical encounter, first loss for the Socceroos, but more importantly, it sees Austria stay in that 24th spot in the FIFA International Men's Rankings, which puts them in pot 2 of the World Cup draw. And of course, that means that you get an easier draw if you're in pot 2, because you'll only face one team from pot 1. So this, of course, will place more importance on the November friendlies now, with the Socceroos needing some good results to claw back that place before the draw place takes place in December this year. So fingers crossed, and we'll, of course, keep you updated with who the Socceroos are playing in that November window. It is yet to be announced. All right, that is it for the headlines. We will move over to the weekly wrap in just a second. All right, weekly wrap time, and let's start with our ladies in the US&A, where Courtney Vine got 12 minutes off the bench for North Carolina Courage as they beat Bay FC 4-1. The Portland Thorns, well, they secured a playoff spot with a 2-0 victory against Angel City FC. Mackenzie Arnold started and played the full game in goal, helping her side to a clean sheet, whilst Caitlin Torpey came on as a stoppage time substitute to help close out the game. Now, Morgan Aquino, she played 2 full games in the past week in the USL for her side DC Power FC. The first was a 1-0 loss to Sporting Jacks, and the second was a 1-1 draw with Spokane Zephyr FC. Now, heading north of the border to Canada, where Carly Johnson was a contender for the Women's Player of the Week this week, as she netted a goal for the first time since her extended injury layoff in Calgary Wild's 2-1 victory over Vancouver Rise. She also won the penalty for her team's first goal in a complete performance in which she played 81 minutes. Now we're off to Sweden, where Kristianstad DFF were defeated 2-0 by Patea. The result officially rules them out of a top 3 place, but they are well and truly safe from relegation, if you're wondering. Remy Simpson and Amy Sayer both started for Kristianstad. However, Simpson played 70 minutes and Sayer played the full game. Daniela Galic could not continue her hot streak in front of goal as her side of Vizio went down 2-0 to Hammarby. Avi Lewick, she played 79 minutes for BK Häcken in their 6-0 thumping of Brommapojkarna, rounding out the action in Sweden. Now let's head to England, where Sam Kerr got 35 minutes off the bench in Chelsea's 4-0 defeat to Paris FC in Champions League action. Ellie Carpenter was not in the matchday squad for Chelsea, and neither was Sarah Hunter for Paris FC, who is recovering from injury. Arsenal defeated Benfica 2-0 away from home in the Champions League. Steph Catley started and played 84 minutes at centre-back, whilst Kyra Cooney-Cross started and played 59 minutes on the left wing in a new position for her. And Caitlin Ford came off the bench to play 21 minutes on the right wing. Of course, there was no league action for Arsenal on the weekend. There was League Cup action, which we'll get into next, with Tottenham defeating Birmingham City 3-0 to remain top of Group E in their English League Cup competition. Claire Hunt started and played the full game, while Charlie Grant was a second-half substitute, getting 18 minutes in that one. Leicester City, well, they defeated London City Lionesses 1-0. Both teams heavily rotated for this game, with Emily Van Egmond rested for Leicester and Alana Kennedy starting and playing the full game for the Lionesses. Claire Wheeler wore the armband for Everton and had an eventful afternoon in her side's penalty shootout victory over Nottingham Forest. Some would say picking up a little bit of revenge for Ange. She picked up a yellow card in her side's victory, but also scored her side's fourth and important penalty. So well done to Claire there. Now to France, where we saw Tegan Maika make her competitive debut for Lyon, making 4 saves and keeping a clean sheet as her side recorded a 3-0 win over St. Polten. She played the full game, of course, but that performance was not enough for her to start on the weekend in French League action. Now, sticking with French League action, Kaya Simon, she made her debut for Dijon FCO in their 1-1 draw against FC Fleury 91. She played 3 minutes off the bench in that one. Now to Germany, where Hayley Rasso's Eintracht Frankfurt booked their spot in the Women's Europa Cup round of 16 after beating FC Slovako 5-0 on aggregate. Rasso started for Frankfurt and played the full match. However, she was an unused substitute on the weekend as her side won 2-0 over Werder Bremen in German League action. Now, Jamila Rankin, she got 15 minutes off the bench as her side Hoffenheim secured a 1-0 victory over SGS Essen. Now, to round out the ladies' action, we stop in Italy, where Winona Heatley played the full game for Roma in midweek Champions League action as they were heavily defeated by Barcelona 4-0. They did manage to bounce back in Italian League action, defeating Napoli 3-1. Heatley played the full game. Now to Sassuolo, who held on to a 1-0 victory over Como. Sassuolo's defence, including Jessica Nash, held firm after scoring an early goal in that one. Nash started and played the full game for Sassuolo, whilst Jacinta Galabadarachi was an unused substitute. Alex Chidiac came off the bench at halftime for Como, but was unable to claw victory or a draw for her side. Now, let's go to men's action and let's start in England and Wales with the Championship, specifically Wales, where Cameron Burgess played a full game for Swansea City and helped his side keep a clean sheet as they drew 0-0 with Southampton. Lewis Miller started and played 80 minutes in his new centre-back role for Blackburn in a 2-0 loss to league leaders Coventry City. He was taken off with injury. He fell on his back and was feeling a bit of pain. His manager said the club will assess his injury before their next game, which is on Tuesday night. local time. Adrian Segicic came on in the 81st minute, whilst Hayden Matthews was an unused substitute for Portsmouth in a 1-1 draw with Leicester City, who, of course, Portsmouth still have injuries with Thomas Waddingham out and Jacob Farrell not in the matchday squad for that one. Nestor Irankunda started and played 60 minutes for Watford as they went down 1-0 to bottom place Sheffield United in a worrying start to Javi Gracia's time at Watford, or his second stint, I believe. Sam Silvera came on in the 82nd minute for Middlesbrough in a 2-1 loss to Ipswich Town. However, in positive news, Riley McGree was on the bench. He didn't come onto the field, but it is very good to see him as he continues his return from injury. Callum Elder came off the bench in the 85th minute for Derby in their 1-0 loss to Oxford United. And some sad news to round out the championship action. Massimo Luongo started but was stretchered off after 15 minutes as Millwall beat Queen's Park Rangers 2-1. None of our Aussies in the QPR lineup, unfortunately. It's believed to be an ACL injury for Massimo, so terrible news there, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Now, dropping down a division to League One, where Joe Gauci played the full game in goal for Port Vale in their 1-0 loss to Wigan Athletic. Rafael Borges Rodriguez was an unused substitute for Wigan. Now, let's head up to Scotland, where Martin Boyle came off the bench in the 71st minute, while Jack Iredale played a full game for Hibs as they beat Livingston 4-0. Tete Yengi was an unused substitute for Livingston, whilst Ryan McGowan remains sidelined with injury. Cameron Devlin played a full game for Hearts in their 3-0 win over Kilmarnock. Callum Neuenhoff remains sidelined with injury. Nicholas Milanovic and Nick Suman were unused substitutes for Aberdeen on Sunday in their 1-0 win over Keanu Bacchus's St Mirren. Bacchus played the full game for his side. Kusuni Yengi was not in the matchday squad for Aberdeen in worrying signs yet again for the striker. Dundee United drew 2-2 with Rangers, and it involved two Aussies for Dundee. Zach Sapsford played 89 minutes, received a yellow card, and provided an assist in an action-packed display up front for our Aussie, whilst Ryan Strain came off the bench and played 6 minutes for his side. Apostolos Dermatolopoulos came off the bench in the 68th minute in Motherwell's 2-1 loss to Falkirk. Teammates Johnny Katrumbis played 83 minutes at right back, and Oscar Priestman got 7 minutes in midfield. Now let's head to Italy, where Alessandro Ciccati's performance was described as Herculean, where he played a full game and helped his side Panama keep a clean sheet as they held on with 10 men for the entire second half as they drew 0-0 with Genoa. Well done to Ali, really turning in some great performances for both the national team and his club side of late. Now to Germany, where Connor Metcalf came off the bench in the 83rd minute, whilst Jackson Irvine was an unused substitute in St. Pauli's 3-0 loss to Hoffenheim. Great news to see all-action Jackson back in the matchday squad, and let's hope he gets some minutes over the coming weeks. Now to Spain, where Matt Ryan was in goal and played the full game as his side Levante lost 3-0 to Rayo Vallecano. So unfortunate there for Matty. Now let's head to the Netherlands, where Jordan Boss played the first half for league leaders Feyenoord as they beat Aden Rustic's Heracles Almelo 7-0 in a hefty defeat there. Oof, poor Rustic. He did have to suffer that whole game. He played the full 90 minutes in that one. Max Ballard played a full game in midfield as NAC Breda drew 2-2 with PEC's Volley. There in the Netherlands. Now to Austria, where recent Socceroo debutant Jacob Italiano backed up with 81 minutes on the left-hand side for Grazer AK in the 0-0 draw with Hartberg. Jed Drew was not in the matchday squad for Hartberg as he currently has a back injury. There's no date for his return at this stage, and of course we wish him a speedy recovery as well. Marco Tilio, he got 13 minutes as a substitute as his side Rapid Wien went down 2-0 to LASK. Now to Denmark, where Paul Itzo was in goal for Rangers alongside Mohamed Toure. They both played the entire game in a 1-0 loss to FC Nordsjælland. Musa Toure also came on for 9 minutes for Randers, of course, Musa being Mohamed's brother. These were his first minutes of the season in the league for Randers. So positive signs there for Musa, and hopefully can continue to build on those first minutes of the season. Now to Norway, where Nick D'Agostino was a contender for our men's player of the week, where he came off the bench in the 76th minute to score a penalty as Viking beat Tromsø IL 3-1. Gianni Stensnes was in the matchday squad but was an unused substitute for Viking. All right, so let's head to the USA and Canada, where Kai Rolls played a full game for DC United as they drew 1-1 with Atlanta United. Patrick Yazbek played 73 minutes in midfield for Nashville in a 5-2 loss to Inter Miami. Of course, we don't need to mention who plays at Inter Miami. Everyone knows. Archie Goodwin was an 89th minute substitute for Charlotte FC in their 2-0 win over Philadelphia Union. And rounding out the action in Japan for our men, Jason Jeria came off the bench at halftime for Albirex Niigata in a 1-0 loss to Tokyo Verdy. All right, that is it for the weekly wrap. We will head over to the players of the week and wrap up this episode of the Aussie Football Passport in just a second. All right, players of the week, and let's start with our women. Our women's player of the week, it was a tightly fought contest between Carly Johnson and this very lady herself. It is Courtney Nevin, who scored and assisted as Malmo FF defeated Djurgården 4-1 and kept themselves in the title race. Nevin played a central role in this match, starting and playing the full game at left back. But she managed to get that goal and the assist in what could be described as a match-winning performance from a left back, which is very rare to see, and that's why she gets our Women's Player of the Week. And just a quick update there, Malmo are 4 points from the top of the table with 3 games remaining. So very exciting times in Sweden for Courtney, making that transfer mid-season very worthwhile potentially. Now to our men's player of the week, Noah Botic. It was close between him and, of course, Nick D'Agostino, but Noah played 75 minutes and scored 2 goals as Austria Wien beat WSG Tyrol 3-2 in another match-winning performance, this time from a striker, and this will no doubt help him get back into the Socceroos side for the November international window. I'm sure Popper would have seen this performance, and with that striking or with those striker positions being a little bit open at the moment, apart from Mohamed Toure, who seems to have won one spot, Noah may have played himself into contention, you would feel. All right, well, that's it for another week of the Aussie Football Passport. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you follow us on social media. We are on X, Facebook, and Instagram, and we'll keep you updated with all the latest on the show. Don't forget also to leave a review of the show on whatever platform you are listening to this on, particularly Spotify and Apple Podcasts. They're the only two that allow you to rate the show. We are currently on 5 reviews, 3 on Spotify and 2 on Apple Podcasts. So we're halfway there until we get those bonus episodes. So you know what to do, listeners. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.